Here come the boys. Y'all ready to go swimming, baby? Come on. Give it up. Get out of that water. I tried telling y'all, it's swim lessons, baby.
Welcome back to another episode of Swim Lessons, the podcast. I'm your host, Dallas Hansen. My guest today is Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno is the son of someone you probably know the name of if you watch football in the last 40 years, Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno played at Penn State. He coached 17 years at Penn State with his dad, Joe, and together they've created a lot of these really unique lessons that I thought were spectacular, and this bird's eye view of kind of how his life and his dad's life were formed. And I guess before anything that happened with Joe Paterno, I felt close because my head football coach in high school had a big board in his classroom, and it said, "Admit it, learn from it, don't do it again." And it was a quote from Joe Paterno. So even as a young student athlete, I always knew about Joe Paterno. So to get a chance to interview his son Jay and kind of learn about his dad, but also, I wanted to learn about Jay. I want to see what Jay was about. Jay still is with Penn State University. He's on a couple different boards, and Jay is very, very good about explaining how NIL deals work, about how these coaches getting fired in the large buyouts, how that works. And so I want to have him on. And he's also a hell of an author. He's written the Paterno Legacy books. He just came out with the book Blitzed. I highly recommend it. It's available on Amazon. And Jay, of course, we got into a few stories about him and his old man, but we just talked a lot about Penn State and what's going on down there and how his life has been thus far. And we talked about a few different fun stories, but really appreciated Jay's time. And I'm kind of I got to go down to a game. I got to go down to a game at Penn State after this interview. So thanks again, Jay, and thank you all for listening. Before we get to Joe Paterno, we got to talk about our sponsors that made today possible. PSP Network. We've got playoff football coming to you live this Friday and this Saturday. I myself will be at Minot North on Friday, the number one team in the state. You got to pay attention to these Sentinels. They've got a bunch of great players. And then Saturday, I'm told we are going to Velva. Or not, we're going to watch Velva. They're going to be playing in Langdon. It's going to be another semifinal game. So all these semifinal games are gearing up, and there's one place you got to watch them, and that's PSP Network. How can I watch these games, Dallas? Well, let me tell you. You go to psp.network. Select the game you'd like to purchase, and we greatly appreciate your support. It's a big thing for us to help these student athletes out and get the exposure. And I know Nick Holberg and everybody out at PSP has been working hard at this. So again, it's psp.network. And also follow along our YouTube page at PSP Network. Thank you, Holberg and the team. Next up is River's Edge Bar and Grill. They're known for offering the best happy hour in town, providing unbeatable deals in a lively atmosphere. Guests can also enjoy a variety of entertaining activities, including bingo, trivia, and the very popular Name That Tune. Come on down to River's Edge for great drinks, great food, and great fun. And last but certainly not least, Glosso Angus, a proud sponsor of Swim Lessons. They're your premier source for registered Black Angus cattle since 1973. Glosso Angus cattle showcase dominance, durability, and docility, and they're built to thrive on the northern plains. Check them out today. That's Glosso, Glasoe, Angus.com. Appreciate all your support on the podcast thus far. Joe Paterno is up next. Here we go. Jay, it's so nice to meet you, man. Thanks for doing this today.
Good to be here.
Well, I mean, I want to start from the top before we get into the book and everything. But I mean, your life has been so interesting on so many different levels. Your dad and you, but take me back to a young age, Jay, when you knew, okay, I love the game of football. But when did you truly know I want to get into coaching?
Well, I don't know if there was like ever a eureka moment where you go, this is what I want to do. But, there was just this constant interest in it. And I used to sit on the floor. My dad would be watching film, and I'd sit on the floor and kind of look over his shoulder and see what he was doing. And back then it was film, and it was a screen about that big, and it was black and white. And, you'd run it back and forth and back and forth. And, as I got older, I got more and more interested, started to ask more and more questions, and have a real keen interest in it. And probably from the time I was in middle school, I knew that's something that I wanted to consider doing because I just enjoyed the give and take of it all. My grandfather, my mom's dad, was an architect, and I used to sit at his drafting board and do stuff. But just the idea of this goes here, that goes here, that goes there, whether it was architecture, which I did not study because I'm like George Costanza. I want to tell everybody I'm an architect. But it's no different with football. It's like this guy's got to go here. How does this fit in this position? That fit in that position? How does that rotation change this, or what they do on defense, that kind of stuff? So to me, it's always been a really, really intense, a lot of fun. But on the flip side, the real joy of coaching in college is always watching young people come in and develop as people as well as football players. And that's really been the thing that was the most rewarding about all of it.
You played quarterback in high school?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was just, I don't think it was a good enough athlete to do anything else. Is probably what it was. I could throw a football, but that's about it. And back then, you look at the way the game's played now. I'd have to, those guys now are they all going to be able to run and do things too as well. So, but it was fun. But it was, you always had that. You got a little more always got a little more attention than you deserved. Because we'd go to road games around the state because we don't have there weren't a lot of quad A teams near us. So we were going to different places around the state, and people would, you hear people say stuff and yell stuff at you, that kind of stuff. But, it just came with, that was part of the game.
I mean, my dad was my coach when I was in junior high basketball, but to be your dad, to be who he was, Joe Pa, and then have you, was obviously some struggles there, but there also had to be some enjoyment where, you could kind of pick up a few different things, or what was that like for you?
Well, I think one of the things about it is, when my dad was coaching, there was a lot of time spent away from us because, you have 100 guys in your team that you got to have a role in their lives. So any coach at the major college level, there's the family has to sacrifice something. When I got to join the team, and then when I coached with them for 17 years, I got to see the other side of it. And I got there was all of a sudden there was something that he and I had in common that was kind of, it created a bond. It gave me a relationship with him that was different than anything that I had up until then. So it was very rewarding in that regard, in that all of a sudden there was something there that gave us a bond together, shared memories, shared experiences, that kind of stuff. And I think that was, I wouldn't trade that for the world.
When you got to Penn State and you started coaching, and by the way, I want to get into the offense that you installed because I was a big fan, but when you get to Penn State, was there ever like a moment in your first season coaching at Penn State?
It wasn't during the season, but I had two guys that really gave me some good things that happened early on. So when I first got the job, one of the guys I work with pulled me aside and he said, "Jay, just so you understand, you are like," it was a black coach, and he said, "You're like an affirmative action hire. People think I got this job because I'm black. People think you got the job here because of who you were born to." He said, "They don't care that you left for 5 years and paid your dues. Nobody cares. They look at you, and so you have to deal with that." And then we used to have winter workouts at 6 a.m. in winter. So, we'd come back in January and we'd have the guys out there at 6 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I came out one of the first ones, and I had sweatpants on, sweatshirt and sweatpants, which is, what a lot of coaches wear out there. And my dad calls me, goes, "Say, look, I don't want you ever out here in sweats. Get a real pair of pants on." And we would wear, everybody thinks Harbaugh invented the khaki look. I mean, that was Joe's look for before Harbaugh was born. But so he said, "I want you to put on a real pair of pants." And I said, I looked around, and there were other coaches out there with sweats. And he knew what I was thinking. He goes, "Look, it doesn't matter what they're doing. You have to be a little bit better than everybody else. You got to hold yourself to a little higher standard because people are going to expect people are going to have different expectations of you because of who you are. So you got to just understand it's not fair, but that's reality, and deal with it." And that was a great lesson.
Yeah, that's so, man, I love that. I mean, it's the khakis were all time, by the way. One of my favorite looks ever. But okay, when you become the quarterback coach, one of the important things that I think today with a lot of these athletes, sometimes the adversity thing, and I know I listened to a few interviews about you talking about NIL, but lately adversity is kind of taken a back seat, and it's almost like a lost art, if you will. But when you were quarterback coach and you were teaching these young student athletes at Penn State about the art of being a quarterback and kind of having that goldfish memory and trying to get over things, what were some lessons you instilled trying to get adversity?
Well, I think the thing that's difficult is you have to only pay attention to people that matter. The toughest thing is, you can listen to everybody outside, and it's not whether it's good or bad. You could go out and have a great day, but when you come in the meeting room, if I sit there and say, well, yeah, you were, 20 of 25, but 2 of them you lucked into because the guy made a great catch. 2 of them were bad reads. They just their defense was just bad, you have to evaluate why everything works. And so, and the flip side, there are times when a guy goes out and has a horrible game, and you've got to try and get them back to understand, look, this thing was not your fault. We go out to Northwestern in 05. Mike Robbins in the first half had 3 interceptions. 2 of them went through receivers' hands. Right read, right time, receiver didn't execute the catch. The third one, the left guard backed into him right as he releases a throw, which would have been a touchdown. The ball floats up in the air. They pick it off. So at halftime, we come in, and he is down. And I said, hey, cut it out. Because what do you mean? I go, this interception wasn't your fault. That interception wasn't your fault. That interception wasn't your fault. I said, so you better realize our guys are running by him. Get your head on right and go out there and let's go win the second half, win the game. And he did. He made a key 4th and 15 throw to win the game. And then we ended up winning the Big Ten that year. But, it goes that way, and you have to just assess everything that you do and keep them focused. Because there's so many ways for people, especially now, there's so many ways people can get at them on social media, on message boards, you name it. People can do certain things that get to them, and they've got to learn to ignore all that stuff.
Do you think that's important to stay off social media if you're a player in today's day and age?
I think the less you're on, the better, the happier you're going to be. Because
as a person.
Yes, yeah, that's not football play. That's everybody. Yeah. Because, I'd love to have a social media platform where you're only allowed jokes and funny videos of monkeys, babies, dogs, you name it.
Just
but it
memes.
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But, with the NIL thing that's so tough is to promote products, to make money, they have to go on there. And when they're on there, they're going to run into some things they don't want to run into. And you got to get them to where they understand there are going to be people like that all the time. And as much as you want to go back at people, you can't swing at those pitches. They're outside the strike zone. They do nothing for you except make you look bad. And that's how you got to look at those things. And you got to look at it and understand that it doesn't matter how successful you are, not everybody's going to like you. And there's always going to be somebody that wants to get into it with you. And you just got to, my dad used to tell me all the time, don't get in a pissing contest with a skunk. And that's how you got to look at it. And there are a lot of skunks on social media. And if you want to go back and forth with them, they generally have more time and less to do than you do. And all they care about is saying, oh, I won. I got an argument with so-and-so and I made them, whatever.
That's a perfect way to put it. Don't get in a piss match with a skunk. I like that a lot. That might have made my day. Okay, let's talk about...
You're not going to win that. Even if you win, you're going to stink anyway.
It's true. Okay, let's talk about okay, is this the correct term for the offense that you guys ran, the HD?
Well, spread HD, which was...
Spread HD.
Yeah, so we what we did was in 08, we had been running a lot of spread stuff already. So what we decided to do was to take that, the zone read run stuff, the quarterback run game stuff, all that stuff, and also add into it stuff we got from the Colts passing game, a lot of NFL pass game stuff in there, and give ourselves the ability to be really multiple. And it came down to Bill Russell obviously won a lot of championships with the Celtics. And one of the things that he said, he prided himself on knowing what all 5 guys on the court were doing and what their role was and what they had to do. Magic Johnson, same thing. Magic Johnson could line up and play any one of the 5 positions in a basketball court. So as in that offseason, I started to look at and say, okay, we have 5 skill positions. You have your quarterback, your 5 line, we have 5 skill positions. They all got to know what the other guy does, because I may want to put the tight end on this pass and put him in the slot and put the receiver inside of him. The tight end's got to know when we call that pass, he's the number 2 guy. What's he going to run? and why does he have to run at that depth and those kind of things. So we did that. So we put it into where our guys had to all learn, and we had a lot of really intelligent football players. We had those starting 11 guys, and again, they ended up leaving Penn State with 15 or 16 undergraduate degrees because they were all just really smart guys. So that was an element of what we wanted them to do, is have the ability to, at halftime, I could take a guy like Derek Williams and say, we're going to put you on the outside and put Deion Butler in the slot to get him on the safety. Or I'm going to get Jordan Norwood here. Or we're going to take Evan Royster and motion him out and get him one-on-one with a linebacker. And you guys will have to adjust because now he's the number one receiver outside. So they all knew how to do that. And so week to week, we could present a lot of different problems to people. So it was just a lot of fun to do that, and a lot of fun to have guys that you could, even at halftime, start to say, hey, we want to move you here and you move there.
Versatility.
Yep.
And
the 18, and we just took it and we just looked at it as though this is a spread offense with an HD capability, a highly diverse, high definition, whatever you want to call it. But at the time, HD was the big thing. So that was the tag we used, like, oh, I've got an HD TV. Woo. Now it's like, what? What's that even mean?
You need like a smart TV.
Now it's like, it would be like spread 10G now or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you mean, 6G? I don't even know.
When you guys... Sorry, go ahead.
iPhone 18 offense, whatever.
When you're going to bring this offense and you guys are creating this and you bring it to your dad to say, hey, I think we should implement this. How was that conversation?
Well, we were playing Texas A&M in a bowl game, and we had more of a drop back quarterback at that point, and Darryl Clark was one of the guys that was on the bench behind him. And, the next year probably was going to be Darryl Clark. We knew that he was a guy that we wanted to do some things spread-wise. So in the run-up to the bowl game, we said basically, and at that time, Rich Rodriguez had gotten hired at Michigan. He was going to bring the spread to the Big Ten. And so everybody, there was all this hype on the recruiting trail, and Rich Rodriguez can bring the spread. It's going to be a Tressel Rodriguez league. And we're like this afterthought, right? So I go in and I said, well, let's put in some of the quarterback run game. We'll use Darryl Clark as the Wildcat, which we had done with Mike Robinson, in 2002 and some previous years. So it wasn't new for us. So we decided we're going to put Darryl Clark in as kind of the Wildcat, and so we did some things. And what we want to do is just try and create. We knew we had a really good offense coming back the next year, and we want to try and create some buzz in the offseason to try and take some of the edge off the Rich Rodriguez is going to transform the Big Ten. So I just said to Joe, look, we're going to do some things in the bowl game, whatever. And we may have, we're going to call it the spread HD, and we're going to kind of let it leak out that that's what we're going to do next year. And we're going to create a little bit of this, excitement and whatever to try and take a recruiting edge away from these guys. And he said, look, I don't like to, brag about things or promise things good, but just understand, if you do this, you better be really, really good next year. And he loved the idea of us. So I casually had Derek Williams teed up and another guy tee up. And when we beat Texas A&M, Darryl Clark came in, kind of changed the game with some of the things he was doing in the run game as a quarterback. And one of the guys said, oh, is that new? And Derek Williams and another guy knew that they could let the term spread HD slip out in an interview. So sure enough, within 2 weeks, they get a call from an AP writer, wants to know what's this whole spread HD thing going. So we ended up starting out the next year with Coastal Carolina. We held it all back. We didn't need it. And, we played Oregon State in week 2 and put 35, we're up 35-0 halftime. So we still held some things back, but all these teams are trying to figure out what does this actually mean. So we put them on their heels a little bit. So there was some gamesmanship to it, but it ended up, we ended up in the top 10 all time in Big Ten history, a number of offensive categories with that group. And we just had a great group of football players that were able to handle all the mental part of it.
What separates a good team from a great team?
Pardon?
What separates a good team from a great team?
Oh, fundamentals. There's no question. It's the details. There are a lot of teams that can get you right there, and somebody jumps off sides or somebody doesn't do certain things. It's absolutely in the fundamentals. Same thing, when you get into, when you want to have a championship run, we're in an era now where there's a lot of CEO head coaches that they hire a coordinator. They're not involved in but there comes a time if you want to win it all, the head football coach is going to inject himself at some point in the game and say, hey, I want this, this, and this because we're struggling here, or we're not quite right there, or I'm going to change the momentum of the game with something. And that's, and those are the little things that keep you from being a championship team if you don't have that. And I think those are the things that, those things that separate a good team from a great team. It's there's a lot of people that have really, really good talent, and you can jumble them up on a bag, but it's the one that knows exactly what to do, doesn't do too much, executes at the right time. Oregon came here and played us a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that was impressive to me was they're in a very noisy environment. They motioned and shifted on roughly half the plays, and that's tough to do in our place, and they were excellent in terms of execution. You look at Indiana, same thing. I mean, they are really tight with what they do. I was on the field for the Ohio State-Penn State game last week. Ohio State on defense is really, really, they are really precise with what they're doing. I think it's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I've never been to a Penn State game, but you only hear great things. Tell us and my viewers what it's like at a Penn State home game.
It's louder than you can imagine. It's when we play a night game and it's the whiteout, it is. Oh. The great thing is, the thing about the whiteout's been great was going back to 2005 when it really became a thing for us, is the guy that really put together said, we're putting our fans in a uniform. Mm-hmm. They're all wearing white. And now they know they have a role to play. You're in uniform, you're on a team, you make noise. That's what you do. You're not throwing a touchdown pass, you're not calling plays, but you have a job to do, and that's to make noise. And I think that's been the thing that's unique about it. So and our fan base has been around a long time. They know when to make noise. They know when to shut up. They know when it's third down for their team, it's third down for us, shut up. They know that they can sense momentum swings and get into it. So, I think that's the thing that's really kind of cool about it.
High football IQ for fans. It's always a bonus.
No question about it. No question. And, it's what happens when you're an established program, whether it's Alabama or Penn State or Texas or Michigan, Ohio State. You have established fans that understand it. And they've seen it before, and they know what it looks like, and they know what they're supposed to do.
What'd you think of the James Franklin situation? It was tough.
No, it's tough because when you think about it, the game has gotten professionalized in this regard, in that the money's gotten so big that players are getting paid now, coaches are making so much money. The fans look at this whole thing differently than they did 8 years ago. So if you're not winning the way they think you should win, we're playing Oregon. It's 17-3 Oregon, third quarter. Our student section starts chanting "Fire Franklin." We score the next 21 points. We're up 7 points. Oregon has a 4th and 1.5. We stop them in overtime. We win the game, and God knows where this whole thing goes. We don't stop them. They tie the game. They score. We don't. Allard throws an interception, and Allard had played a magnificent fourth quarter. You talk about a guy that gave everything he could the last 3 or 4 weeks when we lost. There's no question that guy gave everything he could. If we stop them on 4th and 1, we win the game. Doesn't even matter. We don't even go back on the field. But then it all started. And then, the UCLA, and it kind of snowballed. So it was a tough situation. The expectations had probably gotten too big for what this team was going to be capable of this year. So nobody tamped that down. So some of that kind of was brought on ourselves in terms of not saying, hey, look, we got a long way to go. But, the fans, because of preseason polls, because of the expectations, if you get to the national semifinals last year, you got somewhere between, you're standing, at the end of last year, we're standing not on third base, but we've got a lead off third base. We're close to getting home last year. The problem is the next year when it starts, you're back at home plate. And your fans don't realize you don't get to start on third base with a lead. And all I got to do is you got to go all the way back to home, and you got to start hitting singles and getting people on. And they just didn't have the patience for it. Because even after the Oregon game, the thing that was kind of telling was there was just this kind of almost like this, depression is too strong a word, but it was just like this, oh, here we go again, rather than every goal we still had for this team is still ahead of us. This is, I was walking on stage and there were some students getting on. I said, guys, what are you guys upset about? the end of the day, this game doesn't matter. He goes, what do you mean? I go, we went out, we're in the playoff.
Yeah.
And that's all you really care about. Get in the playoff and everything can happen. And I think we kind of may have lost sight of that. But I think it was unfortunate how fast it happened. And look at a guy that won 34 games the previous 3 years. So this is not a situation we were struggling for years. But everybody's saying, we're not getting over the hump, not getting over the hump, not getting over the hump. Well, what's the hump?
Right.
Because if the hump is a national championship, there's only 3 active coaches in the entire country that have gotten over the hump. That's it. Yeah, if that's your hump. If your hump is I want to win the Big Ten, okay, and get in the playoff and see how far we go. That's a realistic hump at Penn State. It's a realistic hump for anybody. Because to win it all now, you're looking at 3 or 4 top 10 wins in a row you got to put together. That's hard to do.
Yeah, I very hard to do, and it's always I get a kick out of fans too that are always it's either the Big Ten or SEC. Who's better? Who's better? I mean, what do you think of those conversations? They're insane sometimes.
Well, there's any question there's an SEC bias when you look at the rankings.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's no question there's a benefit of the doubt. Why is Vanderbilt still ranked as high as they do with 2 losses? Washington is not ranked. Washington's lost to 2 really good teams. Iowa just got ranked. I think Washington's ranked in one poll and Iowa the other one, but they're not ranked. I look at a team like Pitt that's won 5 in a row and has a new quarterback and is playing some really, really good football. They're not ranked. Yet there's a bunch of SEC teams that are all with 2 losses that are ranked ahead of them. And, we can have the argument about whatever it may be, but there's no question that you're going to tell me that 10 of the top 25 teams in the country right now are all in the SEC. I don't buy it. And that's no disrespect before anybody gets it. That's no disrespect. It's just there are more good teams out there than we realize. And any given day, you got to play somebody can beat you.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I just talking about the SEC, the LSU Brian Kelly thing is so interesting to me because I was watching McAfee and he had the governor on for Louisiana, and he was talking about how the people could potentially pay this huge buyout for Brian Kelly. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's just getting weird and wild, and it's very interesting. The buyout was intense for Brian Kelly, and again, that was a very fast firing as well.
I think the thing with the buyouts right now is they've gotten too big. There is a complete power imbalance between the agents, coaches, and the university. So, for example, this year, if James Franklin wanted to leave, if somebody said to him before we fired him, "Hey, I'm going to hire you," I think his buyout was $2 million to leave. He'd have to give us $1 million or $2 million to leave. On the flip side, for us to get rid of him, it's $49 million. So there's a power imbalance there. So the coaches and the AD, the coaches and the agents, let's say James had a great year this year. His ability to come in and leverage and get another extension greatly outweighed our ability to prevent that conversation from happening. And that's because you have athletic directors, you have administrators, you have presidents, that they all live in fear that their guy's going to leave. At the end of the day, define what your program is, get someone that fits it, and don't overpay for those guys. Because right now, the money, you better be taking some of that money and putting it towards revenue sharing or whatever you can do with it. Because if you tell me, where do I want to err on the side of overpaying? It's going to be on the talent side on the field. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how well you know your X's and O's. It doesn't matter what a great game plan you run. If the guys can't execute it, and you don't have the talent to beat the other guys, it doesn't matter how good a coach you are. You got to put that in the talent. But I think all that, and I think what's happening is in a state like Louisiana, where LSU is completely owned by the state of Louisiana.
Right.
And when they look at tuition going up, they look at people struggling in that state with economic times that may be tough. And they say, our state university is going to throw 50 or whatever his number was, $1 million to a guy to not do anything. They want some accountability. And I'm on the board of trustees at Penn State, and the oversight of athletics from the governing boards right now has been almost non-existent because presidents and ADs are making these decisions without the board's input. Now, that said, we shouldn't be telling them who to recruit or what coach to hire or who to, what the quarterback depth chart should look like, but we should be saying you have certain parameters within your budget that you've got to follow. And if you're going to throw this kind of money at a coach, you better figure out where that buyout's going to come from out of your football budget, because we're not going to. When you look at right now, Virginia Tech's board of trustees voted to inject a couple $100 million in the football program, some of which are going to be involuntary student fees. Some of that money, I'm a student at Virginia Tech. I don't care about football. Why am I paying a student activity fee for athletics that I have no choice over? And that's happening in a lot of schools. There is going to be financial support from the quote general budget. Well, that's tuition and tax dollars. So if these athletic departments are going to be self-sustaining, then be self-sustaining. Don't, and find a way to redo your business model and understand that we have limited resources and you have to stay within your budget.
Wow. Well said,
And I think
Jay,
that's why you see governors getting involved, because they're starting to react to political pressure.
Yeah, 1,000%. Well, listen, I want to help you promote the book. Let's talk about the first book, the Paterno Legacy book. And like I told you, I was listening to you and Dan Patrick many moons ago when this book first came out. I'm a big Dan Patrick fan. What was it like to talk to DP? Because I was telling you that interview was intense.
Well, I had met him a couple of times before then, so not great friends, and not even friends, but just I've had some interaction with him. So, and I've listened to his show, so I knew I was getting into. So that he's going to press you on things. He's going to be fair but tough, and that's all you really want. And he was, he was, he'd ask a tough question and give you the room to answer it. And that's all you really want out of people. I had been on Mike Francesa's show. And Mike had been very, very tough on Penn State up until then. He read the book and came in with a much different opinion on it, and he came in without notes. So, he pulled things out of the book that he would have had to really read the book to get. It was, but as long as people like that, Tom Rinaldi's very much the same way. I've done sit-downs with Tom Rinaldi probably 4 or 5 times and have a good relationship with him to this day, because it was tough but fair. And that's all I have no problem answering those questions. So I wasn't really worried about going with Dan Patrick, because I know he's that way. He's not trying to make anybody look bad. He's asking for legitimate answers to legitimate questions. And that was, and it was a lot, in that regard, it was an enjoyable experience because of the fact that it was fair and that it was a real conversation about real things.
How was it writing the book about your dad, that first one you did? Was it tough?
Yeah, well, when he died, it was such a public situation that I didn't really have a chance to sit down and really deal with what was happening in real time. So in terms of, so it was the first time I was really alone with a lot of my thoughts as it related to his life.
Yeah.
And so when I started writing the book, everything was so public the last 2 months of his life that it was the first time, he dies on a Sunday. We got to get my mom out of the hospital Sunday morning before we announce he's dead, because there's people waiting outside, to the point where now all of a sudden it's, there's going to be a public viewing on Tuesday and Wednesday. There's going to be a private funeral on Wednesday. There's going to be a public memorial service at Penn State. There'll be, 12, 14,000 people in the arena. And now I got to deliver a eulogy in that situation. And it's going to be live on the Big Ten Network, CNN, ESPN. All these things are going on. And then after that, there's still things going on and people. So you didn't get a chance to really sit down and be alone with my thoughts till I really started to sit and write the book. And there were days I'd be in there laughing about funny stories. There'd be days I'd be crying about things that were sad. So it was really almost therapeutic and cathartic to sit down and put this all down. And then to try and form that into a coherent timeline, time frame, structure, outline, was the toughest part, because there was just so much stuff that what do you keep in, what do you take out? And that's always the tough part when you're writing. Is it's not most people that set out to write something and it was too much, and rather than too little. And then there's certain stories like, oh, I wish I could keep that in, or things like that. And you just gotta learn to edit at some point.
How hard is it to write a book? This is a question I've wanted to ask somebody for a long time, but do you find, because it's got to be semi tough?
You get excited about it when you first start. Then about a quarter of the way, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is never going to end." And then you kind of get a second wind, and you got to put an out. And everybody does it differently. Some people sit down, they have an outline, they've done all those things, and they are just going through the outline. The minute I always find the minute I put an outline down, I'm going to tear it up in about 3 weeks and start over. I'm a stream of consciousness writer. When I get into starting to write, I don't worry about editing. I just go and get it down and edit later. But then you start to form it. It has to make sense. Which chapter comes after this one, which sentence here. And that part to me is fascinating because you got to put yourself in the mindset of a reader and saying, this transition makes sense or this transition doesn't make sense. You end up handing it to a lot of people and saying, hey, let me know what you think. Yeah. And they'll come in and go, oh, hey, by the way, this jumps from here to here. I don't know why the hell you made that jump. I'm missing something. And so those things are all really good, but it takes, you have to treat it like it's a job. I mean, it's you have to sit down and say, I need to get X amount done today, or I have to be disciplined. And the phone rings, and you're like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" I think there was a scene in Seinfeld where they sit down and try and write the pilot, and everybody keeps coming to the apartment. They keep stopping what they're doing because they're looking for excuses. And that's how you got to be. You just got to kind of shut things down, shut the door, and start writing.
Self-discipline. I mean, that's something. As of late, Jay, I'm trying to become a sports broadcaster. I've been calling a lot of football games lately. I've been doing this podcast for 5 years now, and something that. Just as of late, like, because my interviews are, just so you know, like all walks of life, not just football. I've had yoga instructors, basketball coaches, teachers, whatever it might be, just people that are successful. And there's been one common denominator, Jay, and it's been self-discipline. I mean, for you, did you, is that like something you took from your dad, Joe, or like where did you develop this self-discipline from?
I'm not sure I developed it yet. I'm still trying, But I think is this, when we walked on the practice field, there was a blue line painted on the practice field. Like when you came out of the building, there was a blue line when you entered that practice field. And the blue line basically said to you, when you were a player, it doesn't matter if your girlfriend left you. It doesn't matter if someone's sick at home. It doesn't matter if you failed a math class yesterday. When you cross that blue line, there is nothing you can do about anything other than being a better football player when you leave practice than when you came on. Now, as a coach, it was the same way. It would be you need to be locked in, on what you're doing. But Joe would tell us that blue line isn't just for that. You got to, when you go home as a coach to spend time with your family, you got to have a blue line where now all of a sudden I can't be, I'm with my kids and with my wife. I can't be worried about what we're going to do on 3rd and 10 in 3 days. I've got to actually sit down and be present with them. Or, it might be July and you're going, well, we got, Alabama week 2, and I'm thinking about what we're going to do on 3rd downs. You can't be that way. And so he would say, and he would say to players, look, when you walk into a math class or you walk into a class on campus, you can't do anything about the pass you dropped in the game on Saturday. So you better be present in that class. It's the old, it's Zen, it's, be present, all that kind of stuff. But that's what it is. It's just a different way of putting it. And that blue line was a marker. So I don't have actually blue tape in my den at home when I go in to write, but there is a point where you check in and say, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. And that's important because it's with cell phones and laptops. There's so many ways for people to get to you. And I'm frustrating sometimes because my kids will want an answer on something right away. Or a friend will say, hey, I text you. And I go like, look, I shut it off. I just put the phone, left it in another room, or I just turn it off because it'll buzz and you'll go, oh, hey, well, what a funny meme, instead of saying, and then all of a sudden, what was I thinking about? So, and I constantly make notes. I walk a lot. And when I walk, if something comes in my mind, I'll take my phone out and make a note about it right away because I know I'll forget it. In 10 minutes, I just go, hey, by the way,
Same.
Chapter 2, thinking about chapter 2, this would make sense. Or, hey, make sure you call so-and-so or do that. So,
that is so good. Once you cross the blue line, you're in. I that's something I'm going to take to my life.
And I don't think people walk enough.
I'm with you, man. I have a dog, yellow lab, so he's always ready to go. But I'm with you.
when you get out there and you're not sitting somewhere, and you start just letting your mind wander, things pop in there that you never think about. And if you were sitting in a structured situation, and I think that's been one of the things that I've really gotten to do a bunch now. Which, when I was writing the books, I'd put it down and go out and walk for an hour, come back and go, oh yeah, and it would make sense. Something I was doing would make sense.
Yeah, it's crazy how a simple walk can just bring your brain. Looking behind you throughout this interview, man, you've got a lot of cool historic things. For those that are listening, those that are watching on YouTube, you can see. What is some of that stuff in the back? That looks awesome.
Well, let's see. That was a half Florida State, half Penn State helmet from the Orange Bowl. They gave those to us. That was pretty cool. This is a mini one from the Alamo Bowl. It's Texas A&M and Penn State. This was a hat that was left by the Wisconsin basketball team the first time they came to Penn State after my dad died. They left it at the statue, and the whole team signed it. And Bo Ryan was the coach, and he wrote "To the greatest teacher of all time." My dad got to know a bunch of those guys. This is an old Ohio State hat somebody sent me, which, Penn Staters will kill me for having that. But, people send me stuff. Hats for my kids played, some game balls, a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm a big memorabilia guy, so that stuff is all awesome to me. My football coach in high school, Nate Nelson, he had a poster of Joe Paterno in his classroom, and it said, "Admit it, learn from it, and don't do it again." And just thinking about the blue line thing, like, dude, that is, it's crazy. I'm talking to you today.
My dad used to say it to me every once in a while. I had a hard time with the "admit it" part.
Yeah, but that's a simple saying.
That was always a big hurdle for me. I don't know what you're talking about, Dad.
Do you have any other sayings that kind of rang true that mean a lot to you?
He told me before I had kids, he said, one of the things you'll find out when you become a father is your happiness is defined by your least happy child. And he didn't mean spoil them. He meant, prepare them for life, get them ready to go, give them the things that they're going to need to be successful in life. And that's why you get happy kids. And he said, you can have 3 kids that are having a great day. And if there's one that's a little off, that's the one you're only going to be as happy as that person until you fix that, or help them get over those things. And I think that's been one of the best piece of parenting advice he ever gave me. But it had more to do with, I didn't have kids at the time, but there was a kid I had recruited that wasn't doing as well as we thought he should. And my dad said to me, "Jay, look, you got to be patient. Give him time. He'll come around." And he goes, "You have to understand that, that kid's parents put 18 years of their life into him to get him to us. And we have an obligation to try and help them develop and help them work through things that may be tough for them, because those parents are only going to be as happy as he is. And we've got to make sure that he understands we care. We have a job to make sure that these guys leave here better people than when they got here." And that was really the basis of the entire program. Winning games was great. Doing some of the things that we did was great. But at the end of the day, it was about turning young men into adults and helping them understand what it was going to take and giving them tools to be successful in life, not just in football, but more importantly in life. And that all came back to the idea that every one of these kids was somebody unique, special, and that, even though they weren't our kids, as a coach, we were only going to be as productive as our least productive player, or as happy as our least happy player. We had an obligation to bring everybody along and unfortunately, that's kind of a lost art now with the expectation of, you don't hear anybody talking about academics anymore in college athletics. It's all about NIL and transfer portal and money. And so we've lost part of that element of the game, which is sad, but it's still happening some places. You see some programs where they are really structured, disciplined, and some of them are winning national championships right now. It's not surprising why.
You heard of North Dakota State?
Oh yeah.
So I live in North Dakota, and I had Coach Polasek on the podcast, and when I asked him about NIL, he wasn't a big fan, but this was before his first year as a coach, and they would go on to win the national championship. But he echoed kind of what you just said. He's like, "I want kids that you can bring home for supper, doesn't matter where or when, and I want them to be respectful, and I want them to be the first guy in, last guy out of the classroom." And now look at the success they're having, and it's still alive today. But like you said, it's nice and refreshing to see that with a good program like they have.
Well, nobody realizes those things carry over.
Yeah.
Ohio State last year won the national championship. The NCAA has an academic performance rating that is real time, which basically says, okay, here are the number of guys in your roster. Here's how many guys are eligible, all these different things, these factors. Ohio State had a perfect APR rating. They were number one in the country in their APR rating. So they are running a program that they are focused on both of those things and succeeding at a very high level. And it's paying off. There's no question it's paying off. Notre Dame is very similar. What Marcus Freeman's doing at Notre Dame is impressive in terms of, they're in the national championship game. And Marcus was a great student coming out of high school. We tried to recruit him and unsuccessfully, sadly. But so those things can still happen. And even at the highest level, and I think there's going to be players that want both. And I think those are the teams that are going to be successful over the long term. You can create a great roster anytime you want. You go out and throw money at it, you create a roster, but can you build that into a team? And that's the challenge, because rosters will get beaten by teams every time.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. Well, listen, Jay, I don't want to hold you up all night, but I have just two more questions. This question, I want you to take me back and into your mind right now. And you were telling me how great home games are at Penn State. Well, I want you to take me to a young Jay Paterno. You're walking with your dad, Joe, and you're walking out, getting ready for a home football game. What was that feeling like to walk out with your dad, knowing you're just about to put on a show in front of thousands of people, represent Penn State, and it's about to be the best Saturday night of your life?
Well, you always think it's going to be the best Saturday night of your life. You always think it is, but it doesn't always end up the way. But it was a lot of fun to be in that moment when the game's about to go. You go out there for pregame warm-ups, you walk in, and all of a sudden you get back in that locker room. There's a clock in there counting down to kickoff, and now everything you did the whole week, everything you did the whole year. Football is so unique because you spend roughly 353 days getting ready for 12 games. You're only guaranteed 12 games, and you spend the entire year getting ready for those 12 games. And when that moment comes, it's a high, it's a rush. It is. There's a nervous energy in terms of, did we do the right thing? Are we confident in what we're doing? There's always that element of, what if they do this? What if they do that? And you're about to get in the back and forth with coaches that have worked every bit as hard as you have, that have a talent level that's just like yours. But it was a lot of fun, and if you aren't excited about game day, you shouldn't coach, because that's what I know guys are like, oh my God, game day. I'm like, then why do you do this? Like, that's the whole point. I want to see if I can beat you. And I want a level playing field, and I want to know, and I like playing the big games. When you play somebody that's outmatched, it's not any fun. When you play somebody that you're going to have to do as well as you can to have a chance to win this thing, that's a lot of fun, because now the question is, can I get it done? And that was the adrenaline is just, I don't know if you can even describe it. It still gives me chills thinking about it, because it was at one point I was thinking about, I had been approached. I had done some stuff for the Obama campaign in 2008. I was a surrogate speaker. And a couple of years later, they came and said, would you be interested in running Congress? And, so I said, look, I'll listen to you, but I like what I'm doing, whatever. So I sat down with my dad and I said, hey, just want you to know, there may be some rumors you hear about X, Y, and Z. I've been approached. I'm not really thinking about it. Maybe a year or 2 years, maybe next year, whatever, I'll think about it. So we're getting ready for a whiteout game, and the place is absolutely nuts. And we're in pregame warm-ups, and he comes up and taps me in the shoulder. He goes, "You still thinking about running?" I go, "What?" He goes, "Thinking about running." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "This would be a tough give-up, wouldn't it?" I go, "Oh, yeah." He said, "I'm not thinking about it. And certainly not now." He goes, "Well, you better not be." But I mean, he had this grin on his face. He loved game days. And he loved, even as he got older, like when he was first head coach, he called every play offense and defense, both sides of the ball. And so he was in it like that. And so even when he got older, he would come in and say, "Hey, you guys they're doing this, and he saw stuff on the sidelines you couldn't believe he saw. But he'd be, "Hey, the next two plays, I want this, and this. And say, if you guys thought about this, and why aren't we running this, and what about that?" And he'd come in during the course of the game, and his insights were almost always dead on. So that part was fun.
Beautifully said, Jay. Beautifully said. Well, listen, Swim Lessons is a podcast about overcoming tough times. You shared with me a lot of kind of overcoming some tough obstacles, but leave us something here, the listeners, the viewers, with maybe it can be a saying, a story, or something that got you from that dark room into the light.
Well, I think you just got to have faith that something good's going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter how bad things get, there's always the sun's going to come up the next day. You got to stay focused on the long term. You got to find the people around you that are going to be helpful to you. Get toxic people out of your life. Don't listen to them. Don't get in pissing contests with a skunk, and just continue to do the things. And I think the most important thing is this. No matter what you do to be successful, you need a foundational set of values that define who you are. And if you have those, you can adjust tactics, you can adjust strategy, but it's always got to be based in that. And if you do that, you'll be fine over the long term. There's going to be short-term setbacks. There were days when the news cycle was horrible. And you go, man, but you knew, just stick to your values. Because in all the things that were said about my dad in the end of his life, and all the things that I had to defend him on, those kind of things, even as I look back on them now, the things I said were honest, they were true, and they were based in the set of values that I was raised on. And I haven't had to walk any of those things back that I said, because they were all based in that. And I'm in a much better place now than I was. And you just got to have, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel at some point. And you just got to hang on to do it. And if you have those things, if you have some foundation that's built on rock, you'll be okay.
Awesome. Well, Jay, thank you so much for the time today, man. I greatly appreciate it. And give us a quick plug where people can find you and some of the books and what you're up to these days.
I'm on the board of trustees, got a TV show, Penn State show called Nittany Game Week. That's at nittanygameweek.com. I've got a website, jvpaterno.com, Jay, my middle initial V, paterno.com. I'm on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it now at Jay Paterno, and on Instagram at jvpaterno. But you can get the books on Amazon. You get the books on my website, jvpaterno.com. And holidays are coming up, and and if you're a college football fan, I think the thing about the book Hot Seat and the book Blitzed, it's going to take you inside some things and give you a real perspective. And I think it may, if you're one of those fans that wants to boo right away, it may give you some pause where you start to realize all the things that the players and coaches are going through. I think it'll give people a different perspective than maybe they get elsewhere.
Awesome, Jay. Well, thank you again for the time, and appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.